main nexus with this is Kubrick gives this away in the movie The Shining. Kubrick comes out and basically says, yeah, I'm the guy who filmed the moon landing footage, and it's the scene in The Shining where the little boy, Danny, is playing with the toys on the carpet, and then he stands up and he has the Apollo 11 sweater on. And then he goes into room 237. Back in 1979, when The Shining was filmed, the distance from the Earth to the moon was 237,000 miles. So the idea is it's Apollo 11, Danny going to the moon by going into it. And this is supposed to be one of Kubrick's tip-offs that he filmed the lunar footage. There's a couple others that are very interesting. One is if you go back in time before The Shining, the movie that Kubrick made before The Shining was Barry Lyndon.
Aloha and welcome to another show, guys. Today I have a returning guest with us, Robert W. Sullivan IV. He's back for his second appearance. And Robert is a historian, a philosopher, theologian, an attorney, a 32nd degree Freemason, author and researcher of esoteric knowledge. He's written multiple books, including The Royal Arch of Enoch, Cinema Symbolism, Volumes 1, 2, and 3, and his fiction work, A Pact with the Devil. He's currently working on Cinema Symbolism 4, and his insights dive deep into hidden symbolism in films, occult history, numerology, and secret society. He's also appeared on major platforms like Coast to Coast AM and History Channel, and I'm honored to have him back again with us. Before we jump in, make sure you follow, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss any new episodes. And be sure to follow me on Patreon, where you'll get episodes completely ad-free, plus access to any content if anything ever disappears from YouTube. It's the safest place to stay connected for now. I also want to say a big mahalo to everyone who's been supporting me through Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. Your support truly means everything. So a huge thank you to Stephanie, David Z, Carla, Andrew, Kevin, and the rest of you who keep this podcast alive. I may not always get a chance to reply to every comment, but I see you and I appreciate you so much. And thank you to everyone who's not only subscribed, but who has shared this show with family and friends. That's how we grow our little ohana with more like-minded souls who are waking up and paying attention. All right, guys, I'll stop talking. Let's get into it. Enjoy the show. Aloha, Robert, and welcome back to the show. Our first chat was unforgettable. We dove into JFK's missing brain, Princess Diana, Kobe Bryant, Aleister Crowley, 9/11, the symbolic powers of 42 and 77, and how it all was tied into the Wizard of Oz. So I'm thrilled to have you back to explore on these in a little bit more deeper. For our listeners, or for our new listeners, can you share with them a little bit about yourself and what draws you to decoding this Wizard of Oz, hidden symbolism?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Robert Sullivan. I am an attorney here in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Freemason. I've been involved in Freemasonry for almost 30 years now. I became a Blue Lodge Mason back in 1997, and I joined the Scottish Rite in 1999. So I've been very involved with it and been a member for quite some time now. This is just subject matters like the occult, the esoteric, mysticism, cryptozoology. These are all topics that I've been interested in since I was a little boy. The show that I grew up on in the 1970s was a show hosted by Leonard Nimoy called In Search Of. And that was the show that kind of like roped me into all this. And it's just been a fascination with me through my whole life. No other way to explain it. It's just part of my DNA, as it were. I published my first book, The Royal Arch of Enoch. It's hard to believe this is now going to be, good grief, 13 years in August that book's been out. And then I have 3 cinema books out. These are about like movie symbolisms, underlying themes, occult motifs or tropes. that you will find in popular cinema, even TV shows. And I do have one work of fiction out called A Pact with the Devil, something I'm very proud of, but I really never have gotten around for various reasons, just really never promoting it. Just it seems like there's just never enough time in the day. I am working on several projects right now. The closest one that will be coming out is Cinema Symbolism 4. I actually only have, I was working on that today. I have 2 chapters left to write on that. And the conclusion, of course, I have to edit it. But that's my next book. That's, of course, the next one in line with the movie books. Then I'm going to do a book called Cinema Symbolism Oz, where I'm just going into all the Wizard of Oz themes, the political, the Gnostic, the Kabbalistic, and of course, this Wizard of Oz Aleister Crowley link with the precession of the equinoxes, the new solar age. That's very fascinating. And then I am working on some revised editions of some of my earlier works. This does include the Royal Arch of Enoch and Cinema Symbolisms 1 and 2. There's a couple things in there I want to tweak, add a couple things. There's a couple things that I want to take out. Those I'm also working on right now as well. I'm also probably going to do some more fiction. But again, right now, my primary focus is on Cinema Symbolism 4, which, based on my best guesstimate, should be out probably, knowing the editorial process and putting it together. I do think it should be out probably somewhere by spring of next year is when I'm gunning for on that. So that's very good. Cinema Symbolism Oz will probably be up next, and then I have started working on some of these revised editions. So that's where I am with that right now. It's coming along very well, and I'm real happy with the way it's turning out. I have no complaints with it.
Yeah, you're a busy guy, that's for sure. And in light of the recent declassification of JFK and his assassination, the documents that came out by the Trump administration, I guess new insights have emerged regarding the CIA's involvement, surveillance of Lee Harvey Oswald. Is there any connection? I can't remember if there was any connection between JF Kennedy and the Wizard of Oz in your research.
There is. I haven't. I have not really paid. Unfortunately, I just haven't had the time to really get into what has been released and not released. So I'm clueless on that. Oh yeah, but I mean, my goodness gracious, yeah. I mean, there's all sort of linkage between Kennedy and the Wizard of Oz, and especially through Crowley's numeric system. I mean, it's quite astounding. I mean, one of the things that's always present with these tragedies is this interconnection with these numbers. That's one thing, but then you will always find like a little Wizard of Oz link in there, and that's probably the most macabre aspect of all of this. Kennedy was very good friends with Judy Garland, who of course is Dorothy Gale, and one of his favorite songs was, of course, "Over the Rainbow," and she used to actually call him up and sing the song to him. Probably not a good idea in hindsight, but it was what it was. But yeah, I mean, with like Kennedy himself, you know, I'd have to go back and look at it. But of course, he was killed. One of the things that was interesting with him was right before he passed away, right before his assassination, there were these 2 trading card sets put out about Kennedy and his life. And one card set contained 77 cards, and the other set contained 42 cards. And of course, Kennedy was killed approaching Route 77 in Dallas, Texas. Very interesting. And of course, was killed by Lee Harvey Oswald. And of course, Oswald invokes the Wizard of Oz. And of course, Lee Harvey Oswald was dispatched by the Ruby Slippers, Jack Ruby. So that's one of the things that makes this thing so interesting to examine is the whenever you're looking at it, whenever I'm looking at it, it's a system of numbers, but then always present will be some sort of little Wizard of Oz citation in there, whether it's Columbine or Princess Diana. That will always be in there. That will always be present in there some way, somehow. Very, very mysterious, very macabre. And like I said, this is really the subject matter of my new book, and will definitely be fleshed out even more. I've reached a point with it where I can't look at it anymore because the book will never end. So what I'm doing is I basically have cut it off, And like
Mhm.
any recent tragedies that come up, like the thing that happened in New Orleans, which is this thing is plastered with it, I'm basically saving for Cinema Symbolism Oz. The stuff I have in four, I'm done. I mean, like I said, if I was just to continue augmenting it, my fear would be the book would never come to an end. But you know, for the Oz book, I'm definitely going to add some more material into it. That's at least my intention.
Yeah, this is really fascinating, and how you discovered it all too. It's incredible. Have you found any connections between President Trump and the Wizard of Oz, or number 42 or 7 or 77 in any way?
There is one of the things I will say, and this I am keeping to myself right now. I do not want to
Mm.
talk about this. Is um, there is, from what I can tell, and I'll tease it a little bit, is one of the things that I have definitely discovered is there is no evidence of this curse's existence or coming into effect prior to 1939, which is, of course, when The Wizard of Oz was released. Of course, came out one of Crowley's kill numbers, one of his bad luck numbers is the number 7. And of course, The Wizard of Oz was released on on August 25th, 1939. And naturally, World War II started 7 days later, of course. Um, One of the things that's interesting with Trump is he is constantly, you'll see where I'm going with this. He is constantly referred to, as you will see Trump in the media, referred to as the Wizard of Oz. You see this very frequently. And this seems to be perplexing a lot of people. I can tell you why, and it's because of his affinity for the 25th president of the United States, which is William McKinley. Um, and William McKinley, number 25, was L. Frank Baum's prototype for the Wizard of Oz. So, you know, Trump praises McKinley all over the place. I mean, McKinley was the tariff king. And of course, this is where Trump emulates, impersonates McKinley with all his tariffs. This is all coming from William McKinley, the Wizard of Oz. Going back to what I said a moment ago, there is no evidence that this curse, I can find no evidence of this curse being active or kinetic prior to 1939, except one thing. And I'm not going to say what it is. But there is some very, very bizarre things going around William McKinley, the 25th president. Um, I don't think it's necessarily. It seems to me because McKinley dies in 1901, Crowley doesn't even receive the Book of the Law until 1904. So it's 3 years later. That said, there seems to be some sort of like preview with McKinley, with this curse that sort of is forecasting what was going to happen over the next 100 years. I'm going to leave it at that. It's quite remarkable. It's very bizarre. And like I said, I've never really seen evidence of this curse prior to 1939, except for this one thing. And it does seem to be an example of this curse almost forecasting itself. And like I said, the thing that's really kind of bizarre about it is this is even 4 years before Crowley, wrote the Book of the Law or received the Book of the Law in 1904. Yet there is evidence to suggest, and I would say it's quite persuasive, that some of the events surrounding William McKinley, I'm going to leave it at that, definitely seem to forecast this curse's coming into effect, as it were.
That's interesting. We have a school here in Hawaii that's named after him, I believe, McKinley High School. I don't remember the reason why, but yeah, odd.
Yeah, he's a very influential United States president. He's
Mm,
kind of one of the for whatever reason he's kind of one of the more forgotten ones, but he really shouldn't be.
yeah.
Um, he is the prototype for the Wizard of Oz with L. Frank Baum, and of course this ties
Wow.
into a lot of the political allegories in the story where the wizard lives in the Emerald City, which represents paper money. McKinley was a big proponent of the gold standard to back paper, greenbacks. This is, of course, why the Yellow Brick Road leads to the creation of paper money, or the Yellow Brick Road leads to Emerald City, where McKinley dwells. And of course, one of the things that Trump did, I think he did in his first term, but I can't recall, was they changed the name of Mount McKinley in Alaska back to Denali. And I think then Trump changed it back again recently. And Trump is a huge fan of McKinley. And I would presume that is why Trump is often referred to as the Wizard of Oz, as a allusion to McKinley, who is sort of Trump's hero, as it were, when it comes to the United States presidents.
Interesting. The last time I asked you about Taylor Swift and whether she had any connection to the Wizard of Oz, you mentioned her numbers didn't look good, but you left us hanging at that. Have you
Well,
ever?
well, here's the one thing I'll say in this, and my opinion on this has sort of modified a little bit over the last year, is the one thing I would say is, and I'm not sure why this is, I'm beginning to like, there seems to be there seems to be people who flirt with this thing and get killed, but then there seems to be other people out there. Taylor Swift is one of them. There's some other people. The numbers are just absolutely atrocious, yet seem to be immune to this thing. Um, Taylor Swift is one of them. Anna Kendrick, the actress, is another one. There's another actress named Karen Gillan, who is in the Avengers movie. I believe she played Nebula. Um, uh, my only best guess at this right now is if my then there are other people out there like Michael Jackson and Kobe Bryant
Mhm.
whose numbers are atrociously bad, and Princess Diana is another one who wound up dead. Why is it that some people seem to remain alive and some people pass away and seem to be taken out by this thing? The best guess or guesstimation that I can give you right now is I don't know, but there seems to be people out there that seem to be selected to spread this thing around for the purposes of spreading it through pop culture and spreading it like you'd spread peanut butter on a slice of bread for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, whose purpose seems to be spreading it through pop culture like a virus. And because that is their purpose unconsciously, they seem to be immune. They seem to be like unknown agents of this thing, I guess is the best way I can describe it. Because there are people out there that, whose numbers are very, very bad, and yet they seem to be completely not affected by this thing. My best guess on this is that they seem to be agents of this thing, spreading it around. That is the only thing. I mean, that is speculation on my part. I will be the first to admit that. But that seems to be the most logical answer. Now, look, this thing is very mercurial, and it's hard to tell when this thing will strike next. I've tried to predict it out based on the way I've examined this thing and using numbers and math and mathematics. I've tried to forecast this thing. People have asked me this, and I've struck out with it because one of the things that makes this thing so hard to forecast is you don't know if you're dealing with 77 days, 77 weeks, 77 months, or even 77 years. It is so hard to predict this thing, how it moves around. With that, I mean, Taylor Swift could die in a plane crash tomorrow, and then I could say, oh, well, there it is. There's this thing striking. I just don't know. Well, I mean, it's one of those things time will have to tell. One of the things that is without question that surrounds this thing are these numbers. These numbers must be present, or it is not this thing. I mean, not everything is the death knell. I mean, this curse is there, but it's not on everything. That said, the numbers 42, especially 77, 333, it's a number that pops up, 7. These are our numbers that must be there in some form or fashion. If they are not there, it is not this thing in action.
I think you're right. I mean, when this thing is through with them, then that's when maybe something might tragically happen. I mean, of course, we don't know, but
We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Interesting.
I could give you examples of people that I thought would have been gone by now because it's just so atrociously bad, yet there they are. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that this thing is almost impossible to forecast out. It is impossible to forecast out. I can't do it. If someone else can, they can give it a try and tell me how they're figuring it out. I've tried 50 ways from Sunday to predict this thing. I can't do it, but I know this. I know it when I see it. I mean, and when you see it, I mean, the one thing that kind of for me is if one of these numbers start popping up, it's like a floodgate opening. Once I start examining it, I mean, these numbers are just plastered all over the place with this thing in some form or fashion. And that's, like I said, one of the real hallmarkers of this thing is these numbers that turn up surrounding these tragedies. That's the real tell of this thing.
Have you ever looked into Justin Bieber or Sean P. Diddy? None of them?
Nope. I have done nothing with them. The last thing that I looked at, the last two things that I've been looking at is um, a couple things. Is well, we had the Baltimore Bridge collapse here, which was
Mm.
clearly this thing, and then we had that New Orleans thing back. That's also affecting this thing. That's all the last two I've been looking at. I've watched some more movies because, of course, the book is ultimately about movie symbolism. And one of the things I now do when I watch a movie, um, I now watch it through a different lens. I watch it through the lenses that I've watched it before for, esoteric themes or Gnosticism or alchemy. I mean, I still do all that. But one of the things now I'm always keeping my eyes out for Crowleyan numbers and Wizard of Oz tropes. And it is really amazing to me, looking back now, how many movies are modeled after the Wizard of Oz. Now, granted, some of this is the Joseph Campbell monomyth, to be fair. I mean, some of that is the elements of the monomyth, but you will clearly see the Wizard of Oz turning up in so many movies, ones that you may not even have considered that are Wizard of Oz influenced. I mean, just off the top of my head, I mean, one of them is Apocalypse Now by Francis Ford Coppola, where you have the Martin Sheen character starting in the land of Oz, in the strange land, which is Vietnam. And then, of course, he goes on this adventure where he is aided by eccentric characters. And he ultimately has to confront the green skinned Colonel Kurtz, who is both the wizard and the witch. Back to the Future, where Marty McFly travels to a strange land where he meets doppelgangers from the world that he knows, only to come back home and wake up in his bed not knowing if it was a dream. Interestingly, when he travels back in time, what's the first thing he runs into? Scarecrow. Of course, it's the first thing Dorothy Gale runs into. Is her first companion is the Scarecrow. And Marty McFly winds up in the farmhouse, much like Dorothy Gale's farmhouse in Kansas. Suspiria, the 1977 one with Susie Bannion going to the strange land, the foreign land, where she, of course, goes on an adventure, meets strange people, only to defeat a wicked witch. You will find The Wizard of Oz very influential. It's a very influential movie. And again, you will find it hidden in a lot of movies. One of the ones, again, another one more recently was the Cruella movie with Emma Stone, where Emma Stone starts out as a country bumpkin, goes to the big city, has this strange adventure, with companions, only to go on and defeat, the Wicked Witch archetype, which is the Emma Thompson character. One of the things that was interesting in that was when Cruella is having her, or Stella is having her birthday party, the friends steal her a cake, and the name on the cake is, of course, Judy, as in Judy Garland. Very interesting. So no, one of the things now that I'm doing when I watch movies is I'm always keeping my eyes peeled for Wizard of the Oz motifs and Crowleyan influence. Crowleyan numbers turn up more frequent than you will think.
Wow. Have you watched the new Wicked, the new Wizard of Oz movie?
Of course.
How did you like that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things going on in the Wicked movie, I mean, this is clearly, I mean, this curse also spreads itself and uses pop culture to move around with. Um, a couple of things with Wicked that stand out was if you watch the original Wizard of Oz movie, this is the 1931 with Judy Garland, you should notice two things almost immediately when she gets to the Munchkin City at the beginning. One is when the Wicked Witch of the East is killed, and Dorothy, no, excuse me, Dorothy is there, and then the Wicked Witch, Margaret Hamilton, appears, and then goes for the ruby slippers, and they disappear. You will notice the dead witches, feet curl up and go under the building. And then you will see the same symbolism minutes later with the start of the Yellow Brick Road, which is the spiral. The feet curling up in the start of the Yellow Brick Road is the Fibonacci spiral, based on the Fibonacci sequence. And the Fibonacci spiral signifies spiritual growth and progression. So in the case of the Wizard of Oz, it is symbolizing Dorothy's growth and quest for gnosis, which is, of course, her adventure, where she winds up in the Emerald City, where she has her Gnostic epiphany, where she comes to know herself. For her, there's no place like home. So the Fibonacci spiral at the very beginning of The Wizard of Oz with the start of the yellow brick road and the witch's feet curling up. That symbolizes Dorothy's quest for gnosis. If you fast forward to Wicked, when at the very beginning of it, when this is Ariana Grande appears as Glinda and she descends into Munchkin City, if you pay attention to her pink dress, that pink dress is also the Fibonacci spiral. And that is a throwback not only to The Wizard of Oz, it's an allusion back to the 1939 film, but it is also signifying the same thing, the spiritual quest of both the Wicked Witch, which I guess is Elphaba, probably pronouncing her name wrong, and then, of course, Glinda, who becomes Glinda, same sort of thing. One of the things that I found very interesting in Wicked was the casting of Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard of Oz. And the reason I say that is because, of course, the Wizard of Oz, Oz is number 77, the goat of Mendez. And of course, Jeff Goldblum, outside of this, is probably known for his most famous movie, which was what? Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park. What was Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park? Where he was the chaos theoretician. Well, what does chaos theory say? That within random events, there are hidden numbers, hidden patterns, hidden tropes, hidden geometric patterns, hidden symbolisms, all veiled to the naked eye. So it's very interesting that they would cast him as Oz, the goat of Mendez, the Wizard of Oz, number 77. And of course, that is completely designed to resurrect Ian Malcolm because this curse moves around in the exact same way as chaos theory. These events that are seemingly unrelated are completely related by subconscious patterns, numbers, repetition, sequencing, things like that, that are the hallmarkers of chaos theory, which of course is pretty much the domain of Baphomet and the goat of Mendez.
That's crazy. I was going to ask you, my next question was, in your research, have you found any connections between Wizard of Oz and ancient myths or mystery school teachings?
I have not, because from what I can tell, this thing doesn't exist before 1939. Except for this one thing, I cannot find any evidence that this thing has any sort of existence before 1939. There are things in the past that are quite uncanny, that seem to be predicting some of this stuff out. Again, but I want to say, if you say, does it relate to mystery school teachings, the closest thing I would say to that is, this whole thing is based on a system of gematria. That is one of the key components to decoding all of this. Which I guess would be coming out of the world of Hebrew Kabbalah, which I guess would be the best way to describe that, is the Jewish mystery school. So in that vein, I would say yes, because the assignment of numbers with letters is absolutely crucial to figuring this thing out.
That is crazy. And not to change the subject, but I heard that there might be some links between Freemasons and early Mormon Church. Is that true?
Of course. The Mormon Church was founded by the Freemasons. The founders of the Mormon Church was Brigham Young and Joseph Smith. Both of those guys were hardcore Freemasons. The Mormon Rituals are all come out of the world of Freemasonry. I touch on it a little bit in my book. I am not a full-blown expert on the nexus between, what the Mormon Rituals look like. Suffice to say, yes, the Mormon Church is basically an offshoot of occult Freemasonry, as it were. And the founders were both Masons. So, yes, a very heavy influence of Freemasonry into the Mormon Church.
Hey, Ohana, I hope you're loving this conversation as much as I am. I just wanted to pause for a quick moment to ask for your support. If you're enjoying what you're hearing and feel like we've earned it, we'd be so grateful if you could leave us a rating or review. Your honest feedback really helps us grow and reach more people who love exploring these fascinating topics. And if you think this episode would resonate with someone you know, don't forget to share it with them. Mahalo nui loa for being part of our journey. Now, back to the show.
So, yes, a very heavy influence of Freemasonry into the Mormon Church.
Interesting. I know that Brigham Young is really popular here, I guess, in Hawaii. We have Mormons on the other side of the island, Brigham Young and the Polynesian Culture Center, which is all part of the Mormons. Interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, like I said,
Interesting.
I'm not a full-blown expert on it, but yeah, there is
Hmm.
definitely a nexus between the Mormon Church and Freemasonry. That's irrefutable.
Interesting. In your book, Cinema Symbolism 2, you kind of explore Stanley Kubrick's and The Shining and the alleged connections between the moon landing. Could you elaborate on that symbolism?
Sure. There is ample evidence to suggest, and believe me, it is not a conspiracy theory, that when Apollo 11 went to the moon in '69, the theory is that they went to the moon, but they could not film there for various reasons. They just did not have the technology for this. Um, the theory is, and I think I don't even call it a theory anymore, is that the NASA, the government, hired Stanley Kubrick to stage the moon landing footage in a studio. Now, there is that is not to say they did not go to the moon. They probably did go to the moon. They just couldn't film there. So they retained Kubrick, and this is 1969. I mean, this is when 2001: A Space Odyssey was just out, and of course, he'd also done Strangelove. And if you look at the moon landing footage, I mean, if you look at those movies, you will see why they hired him, just because of its cinematography. The idea that there's a couple of things going on here. The main nexus with this is Kubrick gives this away in the movie The Shining. Kubrick comes out and basically says, "Yeah, I'm the guy who filmed the moon landing footage," and it's the scene in The Shining where the little boy Danny is playing with the toys on the carpet, and then he stands up and he has the Apollo 11 sweater on, and then he goes into room 237. Back in 1979, when The Shining was filmed, the distance from the Earth to the moon was 237,000 miles. So the idea is it's Apollo 11, Danny going to the moon by going into it. And this is supposed to be one of Kubrick's tip-offs that he filmed the lunar footage. There's a couple others that are very interesting. One is if you go back in time before The Shining, the movie that Kubrick made before The Shining was Barry Lyndon. This is a movie set in the Napoleonic Wars. Kubrick was hell bent on filming scenes by candlelight. You don't know how to make a movie. If you watch old black and white movies, if you watch a scene that is by candlelight, you will always see a light coming in from off camera that illuminates it because, simply put, candlelight cannot illuminate a scene. It's not strong enough. So you will always see a light coming in to illuminate it. If you watch a movie and they blow the candle out, you'll see the light turn off right next to it because, of course, the candle's out, so they kill the light. That makes it darker. Kubrick didn't want to do that. Kubrick wanted to film some of these scenes by candlelight. Believe it or not, NASA had actually developed a lens that allowed you to do this. And Kubrick went to NASA and they gave it to him. And they said, "Yeah, of course you can use this lens to film your movie." We asked the question, why? And of course, that is because Kubrick was a NASA employee. He worked for them. So NASA was more than willing to allow him to use some of their lenses to film his movie Barry Lyndon. One of the other things that's very interesting that Kubrick does, and I'm convinced this is intentional, is, and this one's very well hidden. Kubrick goes out of his way to hide this. And again, one of the things that filmmakers absolutely love to do, I call it occult casting. It's probably more, the better term is, it's an art of memory trick. What filmmakers love to do is they love to retain actors and place them in movies, and they put them in the movie to draw on some sort of earlier movie, like Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. It's not typecasting. It's not like just casting Bela Lugosi over and over and over again to play the boogeyman. It's more very subtle. It's putting someone in a movie to draw forth an earlier work, kind of like creating a pop culture valence, I guess is the best way I can describe it. If you go back and watch the, well, let me back up a little bit. If you go back in time to 1971, one of the James Bond movie that came out that year. This was the last one with Sean Connery. This is the last official one with Sean Connery. This is I know we made the one in the early '80s called Never Say Never, but the last official broccoli James Bond movie with Sean Connery was Diamonds Are Forever, and this came out in 1971. There is a scene in that movie where Bond stumbles onto a secret NASA base in the Nevada desert, which is obviously supposed to be Area 51, and they're filming the moon landing. They've got guys in suits jumping around, and James Bond kind of accidentally stumbles into them staging the moon landing footage. Kubrick must have seen this and knew what was up. And I got to tell you something, this must have been one of the worst kept secrets in Hollywood with Kubrick with this. In The Shining, what he does to further reference this, if you watch the scene at the beginning of The Shining where Jack Nicholson is being interviewed by Stuart Ullman. Stuart Ullman, what I'm getting at is Kubrick clearly wanted to reference that James Bond movie. He clearly wanted to reference James Bond in The Shining to further tip people off. And he does that by casting Barry Nelson as Stuart Ullman, who is, of course, the guy who hires Jack Nicholson, this is Jack Torrance, to watch the Overlook Hotel during the winter months. Barry Nelson is the first actor to play James Bond. A lot of people, if you ask them, they say, who is the first actor to play James Bond? The immediate name that's going to pop into their head is, of course, Sean Connery. It was not. It was actually Barry Nelson, Stuart Ullman himself. Back in the 1950s, they made a TV movie based on Casino Royale, where Orson Welles was Le Chiffre, and Barry Nelson actually played James Bond. So by putting Barry Nelson in The Shining, that is a clear allusion, very circuitous, to Diamonds Are Forever, to James Bond, to that movie, where Kubrick is clearly saying, yeah, I'm aware of that with the moon landing. I'm referencing James Bond because the second to last James Bond movie that came out had a guy, James Bond, going into the secret base, the secret soundstage where they're filming the moon landing. The other, like I said, the other movie that kind of referenced this, and it's right around that same time frame, is Being There with Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers was one of Stanley Kubrick's favorite actors. He cast him in not only Strangelove, but he was also in Lolita. And if you watch the movie Being There, there's, of course, the scene where Peter Sellers is standing there in front of the video store, and it's all the moon footage. It's all the entire storefront is the lunar surface. And Peter Sellers is playing around, and of course they have the Stanley Kubrick 2001 Also Sprach Zarathustra music playing. Again, that is a clear reference to Kubrick with Peter Sellers and that music playing and that entire video store being the lunar surface. Again, insinuating that, yeah, Kubrick is the guy who filmed the lunar footage. Again, this must have been one of the worst kept secrets in
Hollywood. You also mentioned the Smurfs. Could you talk a little bit about that and their symbolism and the hidden, I guess, the hidden symbolism in the show?
Right. Well, the Smurfs are a play. This is something I actually talked about in my first book. The Smurfs are a play on communism and socialism. The Smurfs represent the perfect communistic socialist society. I mean, it's the whole Karl Marx doctrine of whatever it is, each to their own abilities, and that whole line. I have it in the book. I just can't recall it. But I mean, all the Smurfs, they all dress alike. They all live in hovels. They all live rent free. I mean, there's no illness. There's no police station. There's no hospital. I mean, if you're familiar with the communist doctrine, it all is born out of the utopianists of the 16th and 17th century. I mean, and this is, of course, why communism will never work. I mean, if you are familiar with socialist and communist doctrines, they will tell you that the biggest ill in the world is capitalism. And this is, of course, the division of wealth. They will tell you that this division, capitalism, is the response. This is what a lot of people don't understand today when people talk about this. In the pure socialist world, in the pure communist world, are there any hospitals? No, because no one gets sick. Because in communism, there's no more illness because that all disappears with capitalism. Say there's no police because there's no more crime. I mean, and this is the way it is in the Smurfs. I mean, if you watch it, there's no hospitals, there's no police, there's no army. Why? Because it's perfected communism. All that disappears. Marx says when you get rid of when you get rid of capitalism, basically there's no more illness, there's no more sickness, there's no more wars. People will live forever. It's a utopia. It's a utopian state. Of course, you look at Papa Smurf. I mean, he looks like Karl Marx. He's clearly modeled after them. He wears the red. the the red costume of the communists. This is, of course, coming from the Phrygian. I mean, where's the Phrygian cap? This is, of course, coming from the French Revolution, who are your proto-Marxists. So you have the entire idea of the Smurfs being this perfected communist socialist society. And then, of course, you have their archenemy, which is, of course, Gargamel, who you can look at one of two ways. You can look at him as the archenemy of the Smurfs, either being the West, the Western civilization, capitalism. One of the things that Gargamel is very much into is alchemy and trying to transmute base metal into gold. And of course, this represents capitalism, wealth accumulation. Or you can look at Gargamel as Nazi Germany, and that he always dressed in black, is kind of the sinister character. One of the things that's interesting with the Smurfs is, and you will find this in I believe the comic books, I don't think it appeared in the TV show, was the whole idea of Smurfette. A lot of people aren't aware of this. Smurfette is probably, outside of Frankenstein's monster, the most famous Kabbalistic golem in pop culture. Smurfette was created from a lump of clay by Gargamel using Kabbalistic black magic to imbue a lump of clay with human personality. This is much akin to Frankenstein monster, Blade Runner Roy Batty, artificial intelligence, any sort of artificial life that acts like a human is, of course, essentially what you would call a Kabbalistic golem or even a Hermetic statue that comes out of the works of Hermes Trismegistus. At any rate, Gargamel creates Smurfette, and his whole purpose is to send her into Smurf village to rain havoc, to undermine the communist society. And she does it first. And if you actually look at early drawings of her, she looks like Frankenstein's monster. I mean, she kind of has the flat forehead, the stringy black hair. But of course, Papa Smurf, being the white magician that he is, catches onto this and then casts a spell, a white magic spell, turning Smurfette into the Smurfette that we all know and love, with the white high heels and the little white dress. So again, the whole thing is magic, sorcery, communism, capitalism, a lot going on in a children's TV show, but nothing surprises me anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never seen it like that before. That is really interesting. Many people say that there's hidden symbols, or say that hidden symbols can act as kind of a trigger or key. Do you believe that there's symbols in the film that can affect people subconsciously?
Um, I guess it's possible. It's not. People ask me about subliminal messaging.
Mm,
That's not allowed in cinema, and there's no reason to do that.
mhm,
What subliminal messaging was product placement. They would hide
mhm.
advertising in it. That's out. They don't do that anymore. What they do now is they just put the product in the movie. So I mean, if you're Coca-Cola and you want to get Coca-Cola into a movie, you just put Coca-Cola in it, you pay the movie makers a certain amount of dollars, and your hero will be drinking a Coke instead of a Pepsi. So subliminal messaging in film doesn't really need to exist. But yeah, are there archetypal images and characters in movies that draw the subconscious mind to it like a moth to a flame? Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, look at some of the biggest Hollywood blockbusters: the Lord of the Rings, the Matrix movies, Star Wars. I mean, these are the same stories told over and over again. I mean, it's the story of the sun, the solar hero, Jesus Christ, as it were. It's the same thing. You have this character who is nobody, who is plucked from being a nobody and put on some sort of mystic quest to go and defeat some dark, sinister overlord somewhere. You can call this character Luke Skywalker. You can call this character Neo. You can call this character Frodo Baggins. You can call this character Mithras. You can call this character Horus. You can call this character Jesus Christ. It is all the exact same thing. It is the story of the sun and its journey through the zodiac, and ultimately how the sun defeats darkness, the nighttime sky in the morning, and then will come again to constantly do battle with darkness. It is the oldest story of them all.
Interesting. So, from your viewpoint, why do, I guess, secret societies or even Hollywood even bother putting hidden meetings into movies? What's their point?
So the point of doing this is it's augmentation of the film. So by placing stuff into it and hidden codes and meanings, you can convey different things, but it is no different than Da Vinci encoding meanings into his paintings. It is a form of subconscious elevation. It heightens the movie. It turns celluloid into a religious or mystical experience. Um, is essentially what the purpose of it is on one level. Can it convey hidden meanings? And like I said earlier, this whole thing with Aleister Crowley and this thing, it is definitely present in pop culture. Whether it's conscious or subconscious is debatable, but you will find a lot of things sequencing in pop culture with this curse and with Crowley's numbers. That is irrefutable. There is no question that one of this curse's mechanisms, or uh, maybe that's not the right word, but modes of operation is pop culture, because a lot of things in pop culture sync with this curse. I mean, and like, even, I mean, we've talked about it before. I've talked about it a million times, how movies can be prophetic. I've taken a bit of a different course on this now, where I mean, it really has to be looked at an individual basis. Where is it, like what Carl Jung talked about, or Emmanuel Schwettenberg, where it's just prophetic, a synchronicity. I think a lot of the 9/11 prophecy now in pop culture is a supernatural event. I believe this is coming completely out of the world of the supernatural and is manifesting from, this dark force, as it were. Best way I can describe it right
Wow. Wow. Have you noticed any overlaps between Masonic or esoteric ideas and religions like Catholic or even newer religions like Scientology? Do they have any overlap?
Well, right, they do, because the
Mm.
entire Masonic ritual in the third degree is designed to expose religion as what it is. It's just the story of the sun. Um, I mean, the third degree Masonic ritual is a retelling of the Christ story, the murdered and resurrected son. I mean, you will find this in Christianity, you will find elements of this in Judaism, Islam. I mean, all the world's religions are based on one thing: the movement of the sun through the heavens and the tracking through the stars. That is it. I mean, all the characters coming out of religious texts, Jesus, Moses, these characters, they are all personifications of the sun and its interaction with different constellations and the stars. That is every religion currently on planet Earth. And that is essentially what Masonic teaching is trying to expose, because it's the same thing. I mean, you have the character in the third degree of Hiram Abiff, who of course personifies the sun. There are numerous solar references, too many to talk about, who is murdered and resurrected. And again, you will find this in movies. I mean, Harry Potter is the sun god. Um, the Death Eaters are, what's his name? Voldemort, or whatever his name is the devil. I mean, Harry Potter is killed and resurrected. Neo is killed and resurrected. I mean, where have we all seen this before? Um, it's just, the same thing being repackaged and rebranded. It's these archetypal images coming from the heavens above, which, if you are familiar with the world of the occult, this is where the archetypes come from: is the heavens, the stars, the planets. The idea is that when a soul descends from the pleroma, or whatever you want to call it, and descends to Earth, it passes through these Kabbalistic hermetic spheres governed by the moon, the sun, Jupiter, the stars, and these archetypes that these planets and these stars represent are embedded then into the subconscious mind. That's why we all recognize them. I mean, like I said, Luke Skywalker is the sun, Princess Leia is the moon. Call her Diana, Artemis, whatever you want. Um, you have the dark evil overlord, Pluto, Saturn. These are all archetypes coming from the heavens above. And Hollywood knows that, and they know how to use them. And again, this is why cinema is such a popular medium, if not the most influential medium that's ever been created, because it's rebranding these archetypal images that the human soul is literally hooked on, like drawn to, like a moth to flame. That said, yeah, do movies encode different meanings, numbers, symbolisms? I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you get a sophisticated filmmaker like Ari Aster, or Kubrick or Alfred Hitchcock, David Lynch. Yeah, I mean, these guys are experts. I mean, these guys are Da Vinci like experts when it comes to encoding things into their films. No question about it. That is totally irrefutable.
Wow. I didn't know Freemason, I guess their purpose is kind of exposing these
Well, I don't
elements.
know if it's maybe it's not exposing because they don't talk about it. But I mean, when you go
Mm,
through the ritual, I mean, this is what all the guys like Albert Pike and Manly Hall say is is
yeah.
is it's these rituals are encoding these hidden truths. But the
Hmm.
problem is they don't tell you. It's you have to go sit in a library and read like these voluminous works that will talk about all this. But just to the average guy going through the lodge rituals, it will be unknown to them. I mean, the
Interesting.
whole thing with I mean, I get into this ad nauseum in my first book. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole Masonic ritual is based on the Osirian, murdered by Typhon, resurrected by Isis storyline. And of course, that entire, murdered and resurrected sun god story is the entire template for Christianity. I mean, it parallels it almost exactly. I mean, instead of the Virgin Isis, you have the Virgin Mary. Instead of Horus, you have Jesus. I mean, even the names are almost the same, for God's sakes. Um, and again, if you're interested in that, then I would definitely direct you to my first book, The Royal Arch of Enoch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I believe in that book you explore how the Masonic rituals incorporates elements from the Book of Enoch, which was considered lost, I think, until the 18th century.
Well, right. That's sort of the thesis. That's one of the thesi. I don't know if that's the right word. Thesis is, I guess, is probably the better word of the book. I mean, one of the things that I present is that the Book of Enoch, this is one Enoch, was lost from around the second, third century up until I think it's about. I haven't talked about this god in so long. Up until I think it's around 1780. It's 1780 something or another, and it's not even translated into English until the early 19th century. Yet the Masonic ritual um, that is developed in Paris, France in the 1740s, 1750s by the Jesuits is clearly incorporating elements of one Enoch. That is irrefutable. Um, and again, one of the theses of the book is that clearly there must have been a copy of one Enoch floating around Europe that the Masons or the Jesuits got hold of. Whether this belonged to John Dee, which I would say is highly likely, came out of a Vatican library. Guillaume Postel is another likely candidate. Absolutely, these are all possibilities for this. But there was clearly a copy of that book floating around Europe, or at least a highly detailed summary of it.
Interesting. I think I've heard you talking, is it in Russian? Is that the other language you speak?
I do not speak Russian.
Oh, what do you speak?
You were referring to an interview that I do with a
Yeah.
friend of mine who is my
Yes.
Russian. Yeah, he is a Russian counterpart of mine. We do the interviews in English, but he then dubs them in Russian.
Oh,
Um, and I am very, very popular in the Ukraine and Russia and Belarus and Kazakhstan. No, he dubs them in Russian. He's sort of my
really?
kind of like Russian counterpart. Yeah, I do not speak Russian, but he has a
Oh.
Russian translator dub them over.
Oh my God, it's incredible. Yeah, I listened to a lot of those and I think it's fascinating. I was going to say I didn't know you spoke very well
No,
Russian.
no, they're dubbed. You should be able to
Interesting.
find out there the English versions of them. He does release the English versions, but he also does release the Russian versions, and those usually get a lot more hits because of Ukraine, Russia. I think a lot of his audience is Russian, Ukrainian, Belarus, places like that.
Yeah, interesting. That's really cool. So you do that on a weekly base with him?
No, 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 no.
Oh,
No, this is done like every couple months with him. Basically, I just check in. I haven't done one with him probably in some time. It's Vadim. Vadim Shegalov is his name. And I haven't been on with him for probably about a year now. It's been. Um, I have. What's funny is after your show, I have a show booked for. I'm pretty busy this month with shows. People, it's really becoming popular talking about this Wizard of Oz
yes,
stuff. I have, to be
absolutely.
honest with you, I have backed off of it a little bit. I don't mind previewing and I don't mind talking about it a little bit, but the reason I have backed off of it a little bit is because I have been getting emails from people saying, "Hey, what book is this in? I'm really interested in reading about it." And of course, the book, unfortunately, is not yet to be released. So once the book is released, then yeah, I mean, I'll come on any show you want and talk about this 50 ways from Sunday. I mean, we do 2, 3 hours, kind of like holding it back a little bit until the
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Well, before we conclude, Robert, could you share with our listeners where they can find you and delve deeper into your work and stay updated with all your upcoming projects?
Absolutely. So the easiest place to find me and purchase my books, all the books are available on all the major online websites, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. You can get them all there, no problem. There are me, if you want to find me, I do not have any social media. Just go to my website, which is www.robert.w.sullivan, and then it's the number 4.com, robertwsullivan4.com. From there, you can find the shows, podcasts I've done. They will be posted there. Links to purchase the books, information about me, information about my books, upcoming shows that I'm doing. It is an incredibly easy website to navigate, www.robertwsullivan4.com. And again, Royal Arts, Cinema Symbolisms, books 1, 2, 3, 3, Pack with the Devil. These books are all available on all the major retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books a Million. You can get the print or the ebook version, the Kindle, what have you. Again, www.robertwsullivan4.com, and it's the number 4.com. Very easy site to navigate. And yeah, that's the easiest way to find me.
Awesome. And I think talked before anyway that you may be having a tarot card coming out.
Yeah,
Is
so
that still in the works?
that's one of my future
Cool.
projects. That's one's a little ways off still though.
Well, that sounds really interesting too, to be honest.
Thank you.
Well, no, thank you so much for coming back onto the show and sharing your
Of course.
knowledge with us. Every time we talk, you really just open up layers that most people don't even realize are there. And I know my listeners are really going to love what we talked about. And you've definitely given them much to ponder on. I really appreciate it again. And I hope you come back again. I hope it's not going to be another year, but maybe
Well,
if I
no,
have to
I
wait for your
definitely come
book.
back. Hopefully by the next time I come on, Cinema Symbolism 4 will come out, and we'll do,
Yes.
like I said, just shows on the Wizard of Oz and Aleister Crowley and all that good stuff.
Yes, that sounds fantastic. I can't wait. And I will be reaching out again.
Yep, absolutely. I got your
Thank
email
you.
here, so I'll find you.
And that brings us to an end of another episode. I want to thank my special guest, Robert W. Sullivan IV, for sharing his knowledge and helping us peel back the layers of hidden meanings that surround us. There's always more to explore, and I'm grateful he came back on this show to give us deeper insights. And to my amazing listeners, thank you again for subscribing, for commenting, for sharing these episodes with people you love. A huge mahalo to those who have supported me on Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. You keep this show alive. And if you haven't yet, please be sure to follow me on Patreon, where you can get all these episodes commercial free. So until the next time, guys, keep your mind open, trust your gut, pay attention to what's hidden in plain sight. Until the next time, ahui kauko. Bye.
Swung too far, I can't focus. You say who you are, and I've noticed if So if you're gonna stick around, and if you plan to hold me down, be patient, cause I'm fine.